Once upon a time, in a quiet Nigerian village called Umuoko, people whispered about a woman named Margaret, who never ate food. Not even a single grain of rice. She survived only by breathing in the morning air, and somehow, she never felt hungry. Villagers watched her with wide eyes, wondering if she was blessed or cursed. One day, a traveler arrived and decided to uncover her secret. But he soon learned that some mysteries should never be touched. This is the story of fear, wonder, and a secret older than the village itself. Subscribe and let's enjoy the story together. Margaret was a tall, calm woman in her late 30s, with eyes that always looked like they were hiding storms. She lived alone in a small mud house near the edge of the forest. Every morning before sunrise, she walked into the deep bush, breathing slowly, almost like she was drinking the air. People claimed they saw wind swirl around her body, as if feeding her. Others said they heard whispers from the trees whenever she passed. Nobody dared approach her, except Michael, a kind-hearted farmer who believed every mystery had a simple explanation. But Michael was wrong. Very wrong. For years, the villagers avoided Margaret, believing she carried a strange power. Children were forbidden from going near her home, and adults crossed to the other side of the road whenever she approached. Yet Margaret was never rude, never angry. She simply smiled politely and kept her distance. What made everything more mysterious was that she never aged. People noticed that she looked exactly the same as she looked 10 years ago, same smooth skin, same glowing eyes. How can someone remain untouched by time? An elder named Mama Charity once whispered. No one had an answer. Michael, however, refused to fear her. He had known Margaret before the rumors began. They were childhood friends, separated by life, distance, and the heavy whispers of the villagers. One morning, Michael decided to follow her quietly into the forest. He stepped softly, hiding behind tall Iroko trees, watching her every move. Margaret stopped at a small clearing where sunlight fell like gold dust. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply. Suddenly, the air around her shook gently, as if responding to her breath. Michael gasped softly, shocked by what he saw. Margaret turned sharply, eyes glowing slightly. Michael, she said calmly, you should not be here. Her voice carried a strange softness mixed with warning. Michael stepped out, hands raised. I just want to help, he insisted. People fear you. I want to understand. Margaret sighed deeply, and for the first time, her face showed real sadness. Understanding me may destroy you, she whispered. But Michael shook his head. I'm not afraid. Margaret looked at him for a long moment, then turned away. Follow me if you must, she said. But once you know the truth, there is no turning back. She led him deeper into the forest, to a place Michael had never seen before. The trees grew taller and darker here, their branches twisting like giant fingers. The air felt heavier, cooler. A strange silence covered the place, even though birds chirped everywhere else in the village. Margaret stopped beside an ancient rock covered with markings. This is where it began, she murmured. Michael stepped closer, touching the carvings. They felt alive, almost warm. What is this place? He asked. Margaret hesitated. It is a doorway, she said finally. A doorway between the world of humans and something else. Margaret then explained something that made Michael's body freeze. Many years ago, she had come to this rock after hearing a strange voice calling her name in her dreams. When she touched it, the wind rose suddenly, surrounding her like a spirit. From that day, she never needed food again. The air itself fed her. It changed me, she said quietly. I became something between human and wind. Michael stared at her, his heart beating fast. But why you? He asked. Margaret shook her head. I do not know. The wind chose me. And it has never let me go. Michael felt the hairs on his skin rise. Are you in danger? He asked. Margaret smiled sadly. The truth is, I do not know. The wind gives life, but it also takes. As she spoke, a sudden strong breeze blew through the clearing, swirling around only Margaret's body like a small storm. Michael stumbled backward. Margaret didn't move at all. The air wrapped around her gently, almost lovingly. You see, she whispered. It watches me. Michael swallowed hard. Then we must find a way to break this connection. Margaret's face darkened. Breaking it might kill me. Michael stepped forward, touching her hand. You are not alone, he said softly. We will face this together. Margaret looked at him, her expression softening. You have always been brave, she whispered. But this is bigger than both of us. Wanting answers, Michael suggested they speak to Mama Charity, the oldest living woman in the village, known for her knowledge of ancient stories. Margaret agreed reluctantly. They left the forest quietly, but Michael noticed something frightening. Whenever Margaret walked, the leaves on the ground lifted slightly, even when there was no breeze. When they reached Mama Charity's compound, the old woman was already waiting outside, sitting on her wooden stool. Her eyes were sharp, almost too sharp for someone her age. You finally brought her, she said without being told anything. Margaret stiffened. You knew. The old woman nodded slowly. I knew the day the wind stopped blowing for 3 days straight. It was a sign that something sacred had been disturbed. Michael's chest tightened. Mama, how do we free her from this? Mama Charity sighed heavily. My children, she said, to free her, you must first survive the truth. Mama Charity slowly stood from her stool, leaning on her carved walking stick. Sit down, she instructed. Michael and Margaret obeyed, sitting on the wooden bench beside her hut. The old woman stared into the sky as if reading invisible messages. The wind spirit chooses once in 100 years, she began. When it chooses a person, that person becomes its vessel, half human, half breath. Margaret looked down, her hands trembling slightly. But why me? I never asked for this. Mama Charity nodded. The chosen never ask. The spirit seeks a pure heart, a lonely soul, someone who will not fight its presence. Michael felt a chill. She cannot continue like this, he whispered. Mama Charity sighed deeply. There is only one way to end the bond, she said. But it is dangerous. Michael leaned forward. Tell us. The old woman tapped the ground with her stick. You must return to the ancient rock during the Harmattan moon. Only then will the spirit be weak enough to face. Margaret frowned. Face? You mean the wind spirit will appear? Mama Charity nodded slowly. Yes. And it will not come peacefully. Michael took Margaret's hand. We will do whatever it takes. Mama Charity shook her head. Young man, bravery is good. But this journey may demand more than bravery. It may demand sacrifice. Margaret felt fear spreading through her chest. For years she had lived quietly, trying not to disturb anyone. Now she discovered the wind spirit was not simply feeding her. It was controlling her, hiding inside her. She remembered moments when her breath felt too strong, too heavy, moments when the wind moved even when she stood still. What if it harms the village, she whispered. Mama Charity nodded. That is why you must confront it. Before its hunger grows. Michael looked at Margaret with determination. We will go to the rock tonight. There is no time to waste. But Mama Charity shook her head strongly. Not tonight. Only during the Harmattan moon. Before then, you must prepare. The old woman handed Margaret a small leather pouch filled with white chalk-like powder. This is sacred dust, she explained. It will help keep the spirit calm when you approach the rock. Margaret took the pouch carefully, feeling a strange warmth coming from it. How do we prepare? Michael asked. Mama Charity pointed toward the forest. The spirit watches her constantly. Before the harmattan night, Margaret must limit her contact with the wind. She must stay indoors, close all windows, and avoid the forest. Margaret blinked. Avoid the wind. But I live because of it. Mama Charity's expression hardened. Yes. And that is why it controls you. Michael helped Margaret walk back to her small mud house. The sky had darkened, and the evening breeze brushed against their skin. Margaret stopped, breathing slowly. Can you feel it? She whispered. Michael frowned. Feel what? Margaret pointed to the trees. Their leaves trembled, but the air around Michael remained still. It's calling me, she said. Michael squeezed her hand firmly. Do not listen. You are stronger than it. Margaret shook her head softly. No, Michael. I am not strong. I am bonded. As they continued, Margaret felt the wind swirling lightly around her ankles, almost angrily, as if it sensed she wanted freedom. That night, Michael stayed with Margaret in her home to keep her safe. He closed all windows, blocked the door with a heavy stool, and lit a lantern. Margaret sat quietly on her mat, feeling the air pressing against the walls. It's angry, she whispered. Michael sat beside her. Let it be angry. We will break this. Suddenly, a strong gust hit the door, shaking the entire house. Margaret gasped, clutching her chest. It wants me outside, she cried. Michael held her shoulders firmly. You will not go. But the wind kept pounding, as if determined to break in. Margaret shook uncontrollably. Hours passed, and the wind refused to stop. Then suddenly, silence. A deep, heavy silence that felt unnatural. Margaret looked at Michael, fear shining in her eyes. This is worse, she whispered. When the wind is quiet, it is thinking. Michael didn't understand, but he stayed close. Margaret's breath suddenly changed. It became deeper, louder, as if she were inhaling something unseen. No, no, she murmured, covering her mouth. But the air inside the room was already swirling, gathering near her. Michael rushed to open the leather pouch, spreading the sacred dust in the air. Instantly, the swirling stopped. Margaret gasped, breathing normally again. The next morning, Margaret looked exhausted, her eyes sunken but still glowing faintly. Michael prepared some water for her, even though she didn't need to drink it. He opened the door carefully, checking if the wind outside felt normal. The village looked calm. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Women were sweeping their compounds. Everything seemed peaceful, too peaceful. Mama Charity walked toward them slowly, her walking stick tapping the ground. The spirit is watching, she said. It knows you want to break free. Margaret shivered. What if I fail? The old woman shook her head. The only true failure is refusing to try. For the next several days, Margaret stayed mostly indoors. Michael brought her news from the village and helped her stay calm whenever the wind tried to stir. She slept little, constantly hearing faint whispers calling her name. But one evening, as the harmattan season approached, the wind became dry and cold. The sky looked pale, and dust floated gently everywhere. Margaret stood at her window. It is close, she whispered. Michael joined her. Then we will be ready. But Mama Charity appeared behind them silently. No, she said. You must be ready. Michael can only guide you. The battle is yours alone. The night before the harmattan moon, Margaret felt something shifting inside her. Her heartbeat no longer matched her breath. The air felt heavier, and her footsteps made tiny winds rise around her feet. Michael watched helplessly. Is it hurting you? He asked. Margaret shook her head slowly. No. But it is claiming me. She stepped outside briefly, letting the dry harmattan breeze touch her skin. The wind responded instantly, swirling around her like a familiar embrace. Margaret closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she whispered, everything ends, or everything begins again. Michael stood beside her, praying silently. The world around them felt like it was holding its breath. The Harmattan moon finally arrived, cold, pale, and hanging low like a watchful eye. Margaret woke before dawn, trembling with fear and determination. Michael stood beside her, holding a small torch and the sacred pouch from Mama Charity. "Are you ready?" he asked. Margaret nodded slowly, though her heart beat like a drum inside her chest. The air outside felt thick, almost solid, as if the wind was waiting for her first step. They walked toward the forest silently, the dry leaves crunching under their feet. The village seemed asleep, unaware of the battle about to unfold. Margaret whispered, "The spirit is awake." Michael squeezed her hand gently. "Then let us face it." As they approached the entrance of the forest, the trees seemed taller than usual, bending slightly as if bowing to Margaret. The wind began to pick up, carrying strange whispers that made Michael's skin crawl. Margaret kept walking, but her legs shook. "It is guiding me," she said weakly. Michael wanted to pull her back, but he remembered Mama Charity's warning, Margaret must face the spirit herself. They moved deeper, following the narrow path until they reached the ancient rock. The stone glowed faintly under the moonlight. Margaret stopped, swallowing hard. "This is it," she whispered. "The place where my life changed forever." Suddenly, the wind around them rose sharply, swirling into a small storm. Dust flew into their eyes, and the trees shook violently. Michael grabbed Margaret's arm, but she stepped forward bravely. "Show yourself," she said loudly. The swirling wind grew thicker, forming a shape, a tall, shifting figure made of moving air. Its voice echoed like 1,000 whispers. "Margaret, my vessel." Michael stepped back in shock. Margaret lifted her chin. "I am not your vessel. I want my life back." The spirit's form twisted angrily. "You belong to me. It was I who saved you from hunger, from weakness, from death." Margaret shook her head fiercely. "You did not save me. You trapped me." She reached for the sacred pouch and threw some of the white dust into the air. The spirit screamed, its shape flickering violently like torn cloth in a storm. The wind around them pushed backward suddenly, giving Margaret room to breathe. Michael felt his heart racing. "It's working," he shouted. But Margaret did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. The spirit gathered itself again, taller, stronger, its voice deeper. "You dare fight me?" Margaret stepped back, fear gripping her. "I must." The spirit lunged forward like a sweeping storm. The force of the wind knocked Margaret off her feet. Michael ran to help her, but an invisible barrier pushed him away, throwing him against a tree. He groaned in pain but struggled up again. Margaret crawled toward the rock, tears mixing with dust on her face. "Why me?" she cried. The spirit swirled around her, its cold voice echoing. "Because your heart was pure. Because you were alone. Because you were easy to claim." Margaret tried to stand. "Not anymore." She pressed her palm against the ancient carvings. Instantly, the rock lit up with a bright glow. The spirit let out another furious scream. The glowing rock sent a wave of energy through the clearing. Michael covered his face as blinding light spread everywhere. The spirit staggered backward, its shape flickering like a dying flame. Margaret felt a warm force flowing through her body, pushing against the wind spirit's control. "Release me," she shouted. The spirit responded with a deep, rumbling voice. "If I release you, you die. You cannot live without me." Margaret hesitated. Was it telling the truth? She remembered all the years she lived without food, surviving only on air. She felt weak without the spirit's embrace, but strong with her own will. She took another handful of sacred dust. Margaret threw the sacred dust again, but this time, she mixed it with her breath, blowing it directly into the swirling shape. The spirit shrieked so loudly that Michael felt his ears ring. The wind around them collapsed suddenly, flattening the grass and shaking the trees. Margaret fell to her knees. "Leave me," she whispered. The spirit's voice grew weaker. "Without me, you will fade." Margaret shook her head slowly. "Then let me fade as myself." The spirit's shape thinned into a narrow stream of air. Then slowly, painfully, it began to retreat toward the rock, drawn by the carvings glowing intensely. But the spirit did not give up easily. It stretched out a final stream of wind toward Margaret's chest, trying to cling to her heart. Margaret gasped, clutching her chest tightly as the wind forced itself inside her. Michael ran forward, shouting her name, but the invisible barrier pushed him back again. Margaret screamed as the wind spirit fought to stay alive through her. "Let me go," she cried. Summoning every ounce of strength, she slammed her hand against the rock again. This time, the caverns exploded with bright white light, shooting upward into the sky. The spirit screeched as the light tore through it. The wind spirit shattered into tiny streams of air, each one glowing faintly before fading into the trees. Margaret collapsed to the ground, her breathing shallow. Michael rushed to her side, finally able to reach her. He lifted her gently. "Margaret, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered weakly. "Michael, I feel empty." Michael's heart broke. "You're free," he whispered. "That's what matters." But Margaret felt her life slipping away. Without the spirit's energy, she was weakening quickly. The moonlight dimmed, and the forest became eerily quiet. Michael held her tightly, tears falling on her face. "Please don't leave me," he whispered desperately. Just when it seemed Margaret was taking her last breath, the ancient rock glowed again, this time with a soft, golden light that wrapped around her body gently. Michael stared in shock. "What is happening?" The light seeped into Margaret's skin, filling her with warmth. Slowly, her breathing steadied. Her eyes opened fully, clear and human for the first time in years. "Michael," she whispered. "I can breathe normally." She inhaled deeply, not feeding on the air, but simply living. The wind around them was still, peaceful, no longer watching her. Michael hugged her tightly. "You're free," he said. Margaret smiled, tears flowing. "Yes, finally." Michael helped Margaret stand, but her legs trembled as though she were learning to walk for the first time. She leaned on him, breathing slowly and carefully. The forest felt strangely quiet, like it was holding its breath after witnessing a battle between life and spirit. Margaret touched her chest gently. "It feels light," she whispered. "Like I am finally myself again." Michael smiled softly. "You survived what no one else could." But deep inside, Margaret felt a strange emptiness, as if something had been removed and a hollow space remained. She wondered if she would ever feel whole again. Still, she forced herself forward. "Let's go home," she said. "I want to see the sunrise." As they walked back toward the village, Margaret noticed little things she had never felt before. The cold harmattan breeze made her shiver. Dust stung her eyes slightly. Her stomach made a small, unfamiliar sound. She paused. "Michael," she whispered, placing a hand on her belly. I think I'm hungry." Michael's eyes widened with joy. "That means you're alive, truly alive." Margaret laughed softly, almost in disbelief. She hadn't felt hunger in years. The simple sensation felt like a miracle. But with the joy came fear. Could her body still handle food? Would she fall sick? Michael placed a reassuring arm around her shoulders. "We will take it slowly," he said. "One step at a time." When they reached the edge of the village, Mama Charity was already waiting, sitting calmly on her stool as if she had known the exact moment they would return. Her sharp eyes studied Margaret from head to toe. "You are different," she said gently. Margaret nodded. "The spirit is gone." Mama Charity let out a slow breath, relief washing over her wrinkled face. I felt it leave, she whispered. The wind has been quiet since dawn. Michael helped Margaret sit. She looked exhausted but peaceful. Mama Charity handed her a small calabash of warm pap. Drink, she said. Your body must relearn everything. Margaret hesitated, then took a slow sip, her first in years. The warm pap slid down her throat gently, settling in her stomach with surprising comfort. Margaret closed her eyes, savoring the simple, human feeling. Tears ran down her cheeks. I didn't know I missed this, she whispered. Mama Charity nodded knowingly. The spirit stole more than your hunger. It stole your connection to the world. Michael helped her finish the pap. Soon, news of Margaret's return spread through the village, and people gathered at a distance, whispering with curiosity and awe. Some remembered the fear they once had of her. Others felt guilty for their silence. Mama Charity stepped forward. Give her time, she warned the villagers. She has survived the wind spirit. Despite the old woman's words, not everyone felt calm. Some villagers feared the spirit might return. Others suspected Margaret might still be dangerous. A few bold ones approached Michael quietly. Are you sure she is normal now? They asked. Michael frowned. She is free. She is human like all of us. But even he noticed something unsettling. Whenever Margaret walked, the air behind her felt slightly warmer than normal. Not unnatural, but noticeable. Margaret sensed the worry around her, and it hurt. I don't want them to fear me, she whispered. Michael held her hand. They will learn to trust you again. It will take time, but they will. That night, Michael stayed with Margaret again, wanting to make sure she adjusted properly. Margaret slept deeply, her first peaceful sleep in years. But as Michael sat near the doorway, he heard faint footsteps outside. He stepped out and found several villagers gathered, whispering loudly. Show us her eyes, one man demanded. If they still shine, then she is not free. Michael shook his head angrily. You have no right to judge her. The crowd murmured in fear. Strange things happened in the forest, a woman said. How do we know she won't bring trouble? Michael raised his voice. She risked her life to protect you. But their fear was stronger than reason. Margaret heard the commotion and stepped outside slowly. The villagers fell silent, watching her with mixed fear and guilt. Margaret looked at them gently. I understand your worry, she said softly. But I am not the woman you feared before. The spirit is gone. A brave young man stepped closer. Prove it, he said quietly. Margaret looked at Michael uncertainly. Then she closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, just like she used to. But nothing happened. No wind swirled. No leaves lifted. No strange glow appeared. She exhaled slowly. See, she said. Nothing. The villagers watched, surprised. But some still whispered doubt. Mama Charity walked through the crowd, tapping her stick loudly. Enough, she shouted. You all ran from the wind spirit when it roared. This woman fought it. She suffered for years while you only watched from afar. The villagers lowered their heads. The old woman continued, show her kindness. She must heal. Then she placed a protective hand on Margaret's shoulder. Go inside, my child. Rest. Margaret nodded and returned to her room. But deep down, she felt the weight of every stare, every whisper. Even without the wind spirit, she carried scars that no one could see. Michael followed her quietly. Ignore them, he whispered. I am here. Over the next few days, Margaret slowly regained her strength. She learned to eat again, beginning with pap, then soft foods, and eventually small solid meals. Michael cooked for her, joked with her, and kept her company. But every time she tried to step outside, villagers watched her closely. Some were friendly. Some kept their distance. Margaret began to feel trapped again, not by the wind spirit, but by fear and gossip. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, she told Michael, "Maybe I should leave the village." Michael's heart tightened. "No," he said firmly. "You finally have your life back. Don't let their fear take it away." Margaret sighed deeply. "I want peace," she whispered. "But everywhere I go, people stare like they expect the wind to rise around me again." Michael stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "Margaret, you are stronger than their whispers. You survived the spirit. You survived years of loneliness. You can survive their doubt." Margaret looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "Why didn't you ever fear me?" Michael smiled gently. "Because I never saw the spirit. I only saw you." His words warmed her chest. For the first time since the battle, Margaret felt hope that maybe, just maybe, she could build a new life. Margaret decided to test her courage the next morning. She stepped outside with a calm mind, determined not to hide anymore. The cool breeze brushed her skin, this time just an ordinary wind, not a hungry spirit. Women pounding yam paused to watch her. Children carrying firewood slowed down, whispering quietly. Margaret kept walking toward the stream, forcing herself to breathe normally. Michael followed a few steps behind, ready to protect her if needed. When she reached the stream, she knelt to touch the water. It felt shockingly cold, something she had never felt so sharply before. Tears filled her eyes. "I forgot how real the world feels," she whispered. Michael smiled. "Welcome back." But as they sat near the stream, Margaret noticed something strange. The leaves above them rustled softly even though the wind was gentle. The grass around her feet swayed slightly more than Michael's side. Margaret frowned. "Do you see that?" Michael looked around carefully. "Maybe it's just your imagination," he said. But Margaret wasn't convinced. "The spirit is gone," she insisted, "but the air still follows me differently." Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe your body remembers the bond. Maybe it just needs time to forget." Margaret nodded slowly, though unease settled in her heart. She didn't want any part of the spirit to remain, not even a memory. Later that evening, a group of elders called Michael for a private meeting. Margaret watched him leave with worry. Hours passed before he returned, his face tight with frustration. "What did they say?" she asked. Michael hesitated before answering. "They want you to leave the village for a while. They think your presence might disturb the peace." Margaret's chest tightened painfully. "After everything I did." Michael clenched his fist. "I argued with them. Mama Charity argued too. But the elders said the villagers need time to feel safe." Margaret looked away, blinking back tears. "So their fear is stronger than their gratitude." Michael shook his head. "Their fear is foolish. But it's real." That night, Margaret sat outside her small hut, staring at the moon. The wind was gentle, harmless, but she couldn't shake the feeling of rejection. She had fought for her freedom, fought for her life, yet she still didn't belong. Michael sat beside her silently. After a long time, she whispered, "Maybe leaving is the right thing. Not because I am dangerous, but because they need space to heal from their fear." Michael looked at her with sorrow. "Where will you go?" Margaret shrugged. "Maybe to the next village. Maybe farther. I don't know." Michael took her hand gently. "If you go, I will go with you." Her heart warmed, but she shook her head softly. "Michael, you can't leave your home because of me," she whispered. He smiled softly. "A home is not made of mud walls. A home is where your heart stays." Margaret's breath caught. She had never expected such words. "You deserve a peaceful life," she said. Michael nodded. I want a life with truth. And the truth is, I care about you. Margaret looked into his eyes. For a moment, the world felt still and safe. She leaned gently against his shoulder. I don't want to be alone anymore, she admitted. Michael wrapped an arm around her. You will never be alone again. Whether you stay or go, I will be with you. The next morning, Mama Charity visited Margaret with a calm but serious expression. Child, she said, the elders are stubborn. But their fear may fade if they see you live without any strange signs. Margaret sighed. But what if the air still behaves strangely around me? Mama Charity studied her carefully. It is not the spirit. It is your mind healing from years of bondage. Your senses are relearning the world. Margaret nodded slowly. So you think I should stay? Mama Charity tapped her walking stick. I think running will only feed their fear. Stand firm. Show them you are human, no more, no less. Margaret breathed deeply. Mama Charity's wisdom gave her strength. Margaret made her decision that evening. She walked to the village square, where people gathered around the cooking fires. Their conversations fell silent as she approached. She stood tall, even though her hands trembled slightly. I know you fear me, she began calmly. But I am not the woman who lived with a spirit. I am just Margaret, a woman who survived something terrible. People exchanged uneasy looks. Margaret continued, I want to live among you, walk among you, and be treated like a human being. But if you cannot accept me, then say it now. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with guilt and uncertainty. Finally, an elderly woman stepped forward. Her eyes were gentle. You frightened us for many years, she said softly. But we also abandoned you. That was wrong. Another man stepped forward. If Mama Charity believes you are free, then I will trust her judgment. Slowly, others nodded in agreement. Not everyone spoke, but many showed acceptance with small gestures, lowered shoulders, softened eyes, respectful nods. Margaret felt tears fill her eyes. She wasn't fully welcomed, but she wasn't rejected either. It was a beginning, a chance to rebuild. Michael smiled proudly at her. Margaret whispered, "Thank you." The villagers dispersed slowly, leaving hope behind in the dust-filled air. In the following days, Margaret began helping with small tasks in the village. She fetched water, swept compounds, and assisted Mama Charity with herbs. The villagers watched her quietly at first, but slowly, their fear faded. Some women even invited her to sit with them while they peeled cassava. Margaret learned to laugh again, though sometimes the air still felt unusually responsive around her. When she walked, dust lifted slightly under her feet. When she sighed deeply, leaves trembled faintly. She told no one, not even Michael. She didn't want fear to return. But inside, she wondered, was it only her imagination? Or had the spirit left something behind? One night, as she sat alone outside her hut, the breeze drifted by softly, gentle, calm, and warm. It swirled once around her ankle before moving on, almost like a tiny farewell. Margaret smiled, not with fear but with understanding. The spirit was gone, but the wind had not forgotten her. It no longer controlled her, not even a little. It simply acknowledged her existence, like a silent friend passing by. Margaret whispered into the air, "I am free." At that moment, Michael joined her, sitting quietly beside her. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Margaret smiled. "That tomorrow will be a new beginning." Michael nodded. "For both of us." Margaret woke early the next day with sunlight spilling across her mud floor. Birds sang loudly in the village, filling the air with life she hadn't fully appreciated in years. She stretched slowly, feeling her stomach growl faintly, a completely new sensation. Michael brought her breakfast of soft yam porridge and a small piece of fish. Margaret ate slowly, savoring every bite. She marveled at the ordinary pleasure of chewing, tasting, swallowing. "It feels strange," she said softly. Michael smiled. "You're discovering life the way humans were meant to." Margaret paused, listening to the distant laughter of children. For the first time, she realized freedom wasn't just absence of the spirit, it was reclaiming ordinary joy. That afternoon, Margaret walked to the village square, her steps measured and careful. Villagers noticed her without the usual tension, and some even smiled cautiously. A small group of children approached, curious but not afraid. "Are you really free?" one asked. Margaret crouched to their level, her smile gentle. "Yes," she said. "I am." She told them a simple story of courage and patience, omitting the more terrifying details of the wind spirit. The children listened in awe, eyes wide. Michael watched proudly. Slowly, the villagers began to engage her in conversation again. Margaret realized that freedom wasn't just hers, it was shared. Fear faded gradually as trust grew. The village seemed to breathe easier. At night, Margaret and Michael walked along the edge of the forest where the spirit had lived for so long. The moon reflected softly on the dust-covered path. "Do you ever feel it?" Michael asked. Margaret shook her head. "No. Only the memory of it, like a shadow at dusk." She looked at the tree silently. "I think it's finally at peace." Michael wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You've earned peace. And so has the village." Margaret exhaled slowly, feeling the calm settle into her chest. The wind was gentle, comforting. For the first time in years, it was a friend, not a force. She smiled faintly. Life could finally begin anew. Days turned into weeks. Margaret adjusted fully to the rhythms of human life. She learned to cook for herself, to plant small gardens, and to laugh with neighbors. Michael stayed close, helping her whenever she needed. But the real joy came in ordinary moments, fetching water, chatting under the shade of a mango tree, listening to children play in the dirt paths. The villagers gradually accepted her. Not everyone, but enough. Margaret felt belonging seep into her heart. She could walk freely, eat freely, laugh freely. Each time she inhaled, the air felt ordinary, no longer alive with power, no longer controlling her. She had reclaimed herself, step by step, breath by breath. One evening, Margaret sat with Mama Charity at the compound, watching the sun sink behind distant hills. "You've come a long way, child," the old woman said softly. Margaret nodded. "I feel human again. Whole again. But sometimes, I think I still hear the wind calling me." Mama Charity smiled gently. "That is memory, not control. The spirit knew you were brave, and it tested you. Now it respects your freedom." Margaret breathed slowly, the golden light washing over her face. She finally understood. True courage wasn't only about surviving, it was about forgiving herself for the years lost and learning to live fully again. She looked at Michael and smiled. Michael took Margaret's hand. "Do you ever fear it returning?" he asked. Margaret shook her head firmly. "No. I have survived it. And even if it came back, I would stand my ground." Michael smiled, relief in his eyes. "Then tomorrow, we can start something new. Together." Margaret felt her heart swell with warmth. After years of isolation, fear, and strange powers, she could finally embrace life fully, with someone she trusted by her side. The village no longer intimidated her, the wind no longer haunted her, and the spirit that had once controlled her was gone for good. Margaret was free in every sense, breathing, eating, and living as she had always wanted. The next morning, Margaret returned to the forest, not to confront the spirit, but to honor the path she had walked. Michael followed silently. She knelt at the ancient rock, touching the carvings gently. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling a sense of closure. The wind stirred lightly, almost like a nod, before fading into nothing. Margaret smiled faintly. Michael stood behind her, proud but quiet. She finally understood that the forest, the wind, and the spirit were not enemies, they were part of her journey. She stood slowly, feeling lighter than she had in years. Life awaited her, ordinary yet extraordinary. She and Michael walked back together, step by step, toward the village and toward a new beginning. Back in the village, news of Margaret's full recovery spread quickly. Some villagers approached her cautiously, asking questions, offering small gifts, and expressing curiosity. Margaret received them graciously, showing no fear, only kindness. She began to help organize simple gatherings, sharing stories of courage and patience. Children followed her, laughing and learning. Michael stood beside her, quietly ensuring she remained safe from skepticism. Margaret finally felt her presence in the village mattered, not as a mysterious woman or a fearful legend, but as someone who had survived, who had returned, and who could now teach others about bravery, humility, and human resilience. Slowly, her bond with the village grew stronger. Months passed, and Margaret thrived. She and Michael planted a small garden together, laughed under mango trees, and explored the forest freely. Margaret felt the air on her skin without fear or control. Every meal, every breath, every simple gesture of living felt miraculous. The villagers, once suspicious, now came to seek her wisdom and guidance. Even the children laughed when she taught them small songs and stories. Margaret realized she had found her place again, not as the woman who ate air, but as herself, a survivor, a human, and a part of the community. She embraced the ordinary, cherishing the simple pleasures she had missed for so long. One evening, Margaret and Michael sat outside, looking at the stars. The village was calm, the air soft and gentle. "Do you ever miss it?" Michael asked quietly. Margaret shook her head. "No. The spirit gave me life in strange ways, but it also took too much. Now I have life fully, freely." She reached for his hand. "I am ready to live. To laugh. To love. To eat, sleep, and breathe as a human." Michael smiled, squeezing her hand. "Then we begin again, together." Margaret leaned back, eyes closed, feeling the breeze against her face, peaceful, ordinary, and entirely her own. And so, Margaret lived in the village, free from the wind spirit and free to live as herself. She grew stronger each day, laughed openly, ate her meals, and felt every sensation fully. Michael remained by her side, a constant companion and protector. The villagers slowly accepted her, learning to respect her courage and the life she had reclaimed. Margaret often visited the ancient rock, not to fear it, but to honor the journey that made her who she was. The wind no longer controlled her, it whispered gently, like a friend, reminding her of what she had survived. And in the quiet evenings, Margaret smiled, knowing she had finally truly lived.